everybody for coming to the Michael Berryman panel. So let's start off at the beginning. So you were discovered by George Powell.
Test. I just love doing that. Yes, it's true. I was living in Santa Monica. I just finished going to college. Didn't know what I was going to do for a living. I had studied veterinary science. Realized with my health, birth defect issues, whatever, couldn't do surgery, that kind of stuff. And I ran out of money. So I did get an art degree in art history. And I opened up a little gift shop in Venice Beach, California, because I love surfing. And is that Briskin on your shirt? Oh, stand up, take a bow. I mean, Escape from New York. Okay, sit down now. Yeah, it was better than Escape from LA, even though he was surfing in LA. That's good. And I thought that my love for animals and nature, habitat preservation, things of that, I wanted to make a difference. But I couldn't be a veterinarian, so I figured, well, maybe I could homestead in Alaska and be a nature photographer and just be around a place that has not been absolutely turned into, a parking lot. I've always lived in the mountains. When I was in Los Angeles, I lived near the ocean. I was a surfer. I just loved, what gift was given us to us on this blue Class 9 planet. So I have this little gift shop in Venice Beach. I'm trying to make up enough money to go homestead in Alaska while I still could. And this very nice gentleman walked into my store one day and he said, "Hello, are you an actor?" And I go, "No, I'm not an actor." And he says, "Well, I would like you to be in my movie." And I go, "Really?" And I said, "Well, I'm not an actor. Why do you ask?" He says, "Well, my son and daughter-in-law own this antique store across the street." I go, "Oh, yes, I've met them. They're very nice." And he says, "Well, they told me that you had a unique look." And I go, "Well, they weren't joking." And I still didn't know who this guy was. So he goes, "Look," he said, "I'm doing a movie called Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze." And I go, "Oh, you mean based on those little novelettes?" And he goes, "Yes." He says, "I want to do all of them." Well, we only did the one. And I said, well, sir, who are you?" And he goes, "I'm George Powell." And my immediate response was the following: "Do you know who you are? You produced War of the Worlds, The Time Machine, Journey to the Center of the Earth." And he goes, "It's okay. Just say yes." I go, "Yes." And I go, "What do I do next?" He says, "Someone will call you." I go, "Wow, okay." And I went home, and they called me, and I went down for a meeting, and they gave me the script, and I go, "Wow, this is so cool. I'm going to work with Ron Ely," and we filmed at Harold Lloyd's estate in Los Angeles, and I was very nervous, but it was a wonderful Warner Brothers production, and I got to walk on the set. I'm in the studio a lot, and go to a wooden room. It had the smell of old Hollywood, and they put me in a suit tailored to fit, and I had to go get a top hat, and it didn't quite fit, so they put it on this little device that steams it and shrinks it, and I'm going, "Wow, this is so cool. This is so cool." Because I knew Red Skelton. I used to go to his house. A lot of actors their children went to my grammar school in Los Angeles, and so I was kind of aware of the industry, but I never thought I would be doing that. And I got through my scripted pages, and it was a little campy. The movie's campy. It's a sweet movie. And I figured, well, that was a quick career. I don't know what I'm going to do next. I had no idea. I was actually living in the street in my van. I wasn't making enough money to actually rent an apartment. And I got another phone call. And it was George's casting director that was casting for another movie. And I go, well, I haven't saved up to go homestead yet. What do you have in mind? I go, "Would you come down to Cobra Studios and meet with Michael Douglas, Saul Zaentz, Milos Forman, and Joel Douglas?" And I go, "Sure." And I went there, and I go, "What are we doing?" They go, "We would like you to play a lobotomy patient. We understand your father was a neurologist and brain surgeon." I go, "Oh, yeah." And he goes, "Okay, we're doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest." And I go, "Good." "Who's playing McMurphy?" And they go, "Jack Nicholson." I go, I says, "I'm on board for this." So George helped me get started. He was so generous. Thank you, George. I always thank George Bell, because he gave me a Taft-Hartley 2-day guarantee, which if you studied labor law history, how unions come together, by day 2, if it's a union shop, you have to join the union. And George paid my introduction, which was $400, and I thought that was going to be my whole career. Well, I wound up in Los Angeles because something had happened prior to me coming back to my hometown, Santa Monica, Venice Beach. I had been working at a job, and can you believe it, my boss was a real tool. I'm a very safety-oriented guy, and he was doing things that were just wrong and putting people in jeopardy. And so I lost my job because I told my boss, this is not how you do it. And he says, well, I'm the boss, you're fired. And I go, oh, that sucks. So my friend called me up and said, my house burned down. My insurance company gave me this much money. I bought all the wood to build my home up in Washington State near the ocean on Camino Island. I go, oh, wow. He says, the rains are going to come soon, and I'm living in my neighbor's house when they come back from vacation. We have to have a roof over our head. And I go, I just lost my job. My boss was a real not nice person, and I will be there. So I stuck my thumb out and hitchhiked, just like an old hippie. It said Venice Beach, and got a ride with some hippies in a van, and made it all the way to Berkeley. Picked up, and my very dear friend is a Berkeley professor. He graduated with Robert Wright, who was Clinton's economic advisor. He actually does Paris Hilton's family's estate, but it's a whole other story. And we drove up there, and in 7 weeks, we built a house. And we didn't know what we were doing. There was the rough plumbing and the foundation, and we would study the blueprints, and we hammered, nailed, and we did pretty darn good until we got to the second floor and the roof, and we needed to have the roof done. Well, partly through the second story, if any carpenters are here, you'll love this, we had some old retired carpenters that showed up, and they knew exactly where everything went. And they said, okay, we're going to lay out some walls. So we're cutting 1 2x4 at a time, and they just go, no. And within 5 minutes, they had a jig on the floor, and they cut like a whole bunch of studs at 72 inches or whatever it is, like 20 at a time. I go, wow, how come we couldn't think of that? Long story short, these guys in their late 60s let us 20-something-year-olds, they left us in the dirt, you know. And they helped us, and we finished the house. And I go, wow, this is awesome. And I figured, I don't know what I'm going to do next, so maybe I should go back to LA and save up some money and go to Alaska, and that's how I met George. But if I hadn't have been helping my friend in Washington and the timing be what it was, I would not have met George at that particular time. So I guess I'm saying in a long way that serendipity, follow your heart, sometimes the world can close one door and open another.
So you mentioned Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, with that much star power, there has to be some funny stories, something like that. Is there anything that you could share with us about filming?
Yes. We had 2 weeks of rehearsal with Panavision cameras and carbon arc lighting. Carbon arc lightings are basically a carbon rod being fed in an ignited situation, and it's burning. They're the ones that they used to, sweep the sky. Oh, the drive-in, those ones. They all got sold to France. They give beautiful, beautiful lighting. You have to time your shot sequences to how much time is left on the rod as it burns, because it can flicker at the end. It's a fine art form, and it gives beautiful, beautiful diffusion. So if you're in the photography, carbon arc lighting, go to France. It's wonderful. So we had 2 weeks of rehearsal with major scenes, so we could kind of get a feel for one another. We were at a real mental hospital, which is Oregon State Hospital in Salem. The doctor was the real doctor in charge of that. When we went up to have Jack electroshock therapy, those were real patients. The black gentleman stirring the invisible cauldron, the young boy in the window of the door. He was an arsonist. He's doing life in a mental institution for torching a church with people in it. But we had to spend an hour a day for the first 2 weeks with one-on-one with real patients to Some were locked up for life, some were not, and they were volunteers, meaning we had permission to speak with them. And we asked them straight up what's going on. They have tunnels underground during the winter, so if you're sick and you go to the infirmary and back to your ward, you didn't have to go through the snow and the weather, you go through the tunnels. At night, just like in Cuckoo's Nest, some people like Mr. Turco would actually throw parties and get some alcohol, and sometimes the men and the women, they would let them have a little party and spend some time. A little bit of human dignity to act like we're just regular folks. These are not people that are incarcerated in a mental institution because they're a felon. These are people that need humanity and health care, et cetera, et cetera. So that was very revealing. They performed 2 lobotomies while we were there and tried to hide it from us. The electroshock therapy scene with Jack Nicholson is absolutely accurate. That's exactly how it is. We were filming 6 days a week, and Jack Nicholson and the production staff rented a house, so they had a nice place to live. We were at a hotel, which is great, but there was a Black Angus and only 1 restaurant, and our hours were such we didn't get out and about much, and when we did have an opportunity, we had fun. So one day, I'm on a free day, and I'm walking downtown Salem, and I hear a school bus coming by, which was the bus from Cuckoo's Nest, and in the back was our camera crew and Michael Douglas and all these famous rich people. Not that that matters, but Jack Nicholson is driving the school bus with Danny DeVito and Christopher Lloyd and everybody in it. And it's a scene where, you know, they're going to go fishing. So nobody in town really knew and recognized that that was Jack Nicholson and whatnot. So Jack beeps the horn, and I look up, and they're all waving and making goofy faces. And I'm looking at everybody else on the sidewalk and around, you know, the street, and they had no clue. And I'm going, well, that's kind of cool. And it was a hand-picked crew. Our camera crew were from Mutiny and the Bounty. I mean, this was a class. That's why it won 7 Oscars for a reason. It's just a wonderful, uplifting film. There is a scene, a quick scene, if you remember Cuckoo's Nest, is a yellow sign with a duck on it, and it says duck crossing. They put that in for our benefit because every day driving to the set, there was a duck crossing. In the state of Oregon, if you see a duck and you're in a duck crossing and you don't respect or protect the duck, you will go to jail. So every morning we were hoping someday there would be a duck in the duck crossing. One day, finally, it was. Christopher Lloyd, me, and Danny DeVito got out of the bus, stopped traffic, and we were so proud to be official duck crossing guards. And the mama duck came and the babies crossed, and then there was one straggler. And Chris is going, are we good? I go, I don't know, and it might be, and then there was a cross, and I mean, our chests were puffed out. We were so damn proud, and ducks are cute. You know, foie gras should be, not happening, but it was wonderful. It was like living with a family of total strangers. My lobotomy scars were put together by the fantastic Fred Phillips, whose father started the Prostitute Makeup Artists Union. Fred drove up from Topanga, California, which is a very forward-thinking, wonderful place. A lot of hippies there and musicians lived there. And he would drive up in his Cadillac towing a trailer, and he'd stay at a trailer park because he said, son, I just don't like hanging around people in the business all the time. And this way, my wife comes up and visits, I got my cat in a little bit of home. There's 127 days on location. You get homesick, and then people would come to the hotel. We couldn't go out and about, so it was like people would go, oh, there they are, you know, and so during one of the first weeks while we were there, some locals came up to us at the bar and at the Black Angus, and they said, hey, it's Friday night, we're having a mixer, would you like to come over to our house, and we got a kegger, and please come party with us. And I go, well, thank you very much, I shall do so. So we got a cab, and we went to their house. And yes, there was a keg on ice in the garage, and everybody all knew each other except us. We were like total strangers. Me, Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, Vince Chiavelli, and after about 25, 30 minutes, they started to realize that, because somebody said, well, when's Jack Nicholson and Michael Douglas coming over? I don't think they are. They're kind of busy, and we don't even know where they're living. They're in a house somewhere in town. And then they go, so they ignored us. So I called a cab, and pinky extended. I actually said, hey guys, they're, because we're not inviting who they want to see, and we're not really famous or important in that manner, let's see if we can kill this keg. It was a keg of Heineken, so I go, I know we're going to have a hangover, but I don't care. So in the garage with your typical serious beer drinkers that that would tell you, don't pump it again. We know why, right? Yeah. So we hammered that keg, and oh God, did I have a headache the next morning. But it was like family. It was just absolutely delightful. And when, and I'm going to finish with this on Cuckoo's Nest, when Will Sampson, the chief, suffocates Jack Nicholson, his bed was right next to my rack on the set. And I have to tell you, we killed Jack at about 12:30 in the morning, and you could hear a pin drop. And when he goes, I'm taking you with me, I can't bear it. Well, he does the whole thing, I'm big as a tree, you can't stop, and then they do the reveal, and you can see the lobotomy scars, because my character, Ellis, in Ken Kesey's story was as rambunctious as Nicholson, of course. Nurse Ratched was very mean and did what she did. So Will goes, I can't leave you like this. I'm taking you with me. And he goes, let's go. And they do the struggle and the shake, and there's that beautiful Native American rattle and drum beat. And then Will does a beautiful, beautiful thing. Well, the camera's tight, and there's the pillow, and he removes the pillow, and then Jack is, and he takes his hand, and he does this. And he pulls away. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scene. Some of the cinematographic film moments that are most powerful are not crazy action dialogue or heads exploding. It can be a very simple, simple gesture. And that's why I love the art of film and storytelling. And I'm so blessed to be, I get to meet tens of thousands of people like yourself when I travel. I'm going to London next week for a Michael Berryman Love Fest, which is not what's so important, but I get to share ideas. If you've been at my table, you know I talk about every subject under the sun, because I believe our children deserve a future, and you meet the best people at these shows. If you want to meet a bunch of tools, go to a sports convention. What's your next question?
Let's move to The Hills Have Eyes. Talk about, the working conditions of working in the desert for 5 months.
It was very hot in the daytime and very cold at night. We drove north of Los Angeles, just into the high desert, beyond the studio zone, where you didn't have to have a lot of other rules, which maybe cost prohibitive or whatever. But we would literally drive up to a spot, this is good, and then we'd just roll out the camera and start doing it. We had the Bionic Dog, which was Bracken. Mo DeCesso, the animal handler, was wonderful. Bracken he was kind of old along the tooth, so to speak, and he had a little bit of arthritis. So at night when it was cold, my dog, a wolf German Shepherd, Nishka, would do the blocking. And she kind of she was really smart. And I go, okay, Nishka, here's your mark. And she'd just go, I know, Dad. And she was just wonderful. And the rattlesnake was a very interesting situation, because they put the word out. I don't know who they put the word out to, but they said, we need a rattlesnake for our movie. So some local showed up at the motel and goes, oh, I've got one. Oh, okay, bring it. It was his pet. It was a Mojave Green, which is like a cobra. It's neuro and muscle toxin. Now, having lived in the high desert, I recognized it right away, and he had taken you won't believe this, monofilament line and just run a hole through here so his mouth could not open wide enough too, but if he really wanted to, maybe he could fang you. Now we had no anti-venom. If you got bit, you would die. And he put it in a box that was really cold so it'd be lethargic. Well, it got warmer during the course of the day. And remember the scene where Ruby goes and picks up the snake? That's a big snake. I mean, that's enough to kill 10 men. And so one day at lunch, we're sitting in this ravine, we're all eating our lunch, and I start seeing, you know what a catapult is? Things go, people were doing that. No joke. And I'm going, something bad is coming toward me. So I stepped away, and the snake got loose. The guy was go getting his lunch, and he goes, oh, don't touch it. And Ruby, Janice Blythe, actually went and picked it up and went to hand it to Peter Locke, my producer, and Peter fainted, dead away. The guy gets the snake, puts it away, does the latch, and then I wait for a minute and I go, why do you have a Mojave green on a set? He goes, I like reptiles. Okay. That was challenging. When we did the attack in the trailer, I made sure that, see, Pluto being a carnivore, when I go in, because we could only chop the trailer up once, we didn't have any replacement parts. So we choreographed it with the handheld movement with Eric, our DP, and we did really well. And then when I opened the refrigerator, who can tell me what Pluto looked at but did not take out of the refrigerator? I know it's an old movie, but in the door, I left the green apple, a red apple, and soda pop. Pluto took a hatchet, all the meat, the milk, the baby, and all the bullets. And then when I was taken, when Mars insulted me, wait till you're a man, Pee-wee, and throw a tantrum and I start chopping stuff up. That was all choreographed so we could get it. And it's very effective. And then the partition that I chopped through, well, one of those pieces of wood went right through my hand. But you just kind of roll with it. Let's see what else happened that was fascinating. I really, really like the intensity of the opening sequence when Grandpa Fred's talking to the father, and he's telling him the backstory about, hey, this bastard kid, first there was a daughter as cute as a bug, and then this thing came out sideways and damn near tore Martha apart. Accidents were happening all the time. Animals falling down the well, blah, blah, blah. One day I came home and the place was burnt to the ground. That little girl was burnt to a cinder. That son of a bitch, he wasn't even since. I knew he'd done it, so I took a tire iron and I split his face wide open. And the father goes, well, how bad was it? Now, I used to have an argument with Wes. I go, you know, Wes, that's comic relief. I think it, but he was smart. It was designed to, oh, how bad was it? And then he goes, what's this stuff? Pointing to the stuff that Ruby was trading, right? He goes, oh, that's nothing, that's, and then boom, through the window, he gets pulled, and boom, 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 with tire iron, and Wes Craven is a sharp son of a bitch. I was going to say motherfucker, but I was going to say something. He really knows how to craft a story. And so we knew that this movie had grit, and it just grabs you. And to this day, 30 some odd, almost 40 years later, it'll hold its ground next to anything Rob Zombie's done or anybody, because it is just tight and very honest. And I worked with Wes many times after that. Our part 2 I thought was kind of cool. The remakes, honestly, I think they really suck. The first remake, I liked it for about the first 12 minutes, and then after the guy in the cave did that thing with the teeth and the metal thing, and it just turned into chase, kill, special effects, splatter blood. Had no story, had no heart, had no character development. When things happen to people you don't care, that's when you can lose it as a screenwriter.
You were literally the face of the film. Tell us how that came about, that every poster was you.
Well, that's a very, I appreciate that question, and I'll tell you exactly how that happened. They were going to use Papa Juke for the face of Hills Have Eyes. The reason they used me is for the following reason. I've had medical issues. I was going through a lot of arm surgery under both of my arms, and I'm talking a sand wedge type of you know. There was such a big wound they couldn't even sew it up. They had to pack it because I had problems afterwards, have to have that Lansing cut. And it wasn't pretty, it wasn't fun, lasted 5 years. So I'm wearing the hides over my shoulders because it looked really cool, but also because it hid my abdominal dressings that were holding the undersides of my arms from bleeding out and packing falling out. Literally, I'm telling you the straight facts. And Wes and Peter pulled me to the side. They said, man, I even had to drive to LA one week and have some surgery done and then come back for Monday morning. And they said, you are a trooper. He says, it's hot in the daytime, you can't perspire, you're doing the best you can, you're making sure that you don't collapse. At nighttime it's cool, I'm happy for that, but you're dealing with the healing of your arms and you're not complaining. You show up on time, you know your job, and I says, I'm just trying to do the best I can. Well, Jimmy Whitworth, loved him dearly, but he was dinging him every time. We can work so many hours and you go beyond so many minutes. Everybody on the clock with a SAG contract gets a meal penalty, a late penalty, and they didn't really have much of a budget. And so he was calling SAG, which was within our rights, every single time. And he said, he's been dinging us every nickel and dime, and you were a team player and never complained, and you didn't do that. And long story short, they said, I'm going to give you $1 million worth of advertising, put your face on the poster and all the ad work. And I'm forever grateful, especially to George Powell, who gave me my break.
Excellent. So you said Wes extremely talented. What type, you've worked with Rob Zombie and quite a number of other directors. What type of director do you like? Do you like a real hands-on director or one that gives you the ability to bring your own take on the role?
My favorite directors can do both. Now, when it comes to hands-on, to me, I like specific direction when it has to deal, especially with camera. I love photography, and I understand the editing process when you have to make all of these things fit to where it flows well. You don't lose your emotional content or whatever factors you're dealing with. So I do like the ability to create my character. I really appreciate pre-production so I can run some ideas by, because I might have 3 or 4 really great ideas, but if I am going to be in a movie where there's other actors that I'm not in scenes with, my director knows what their emotional content works with the flow of the story. So if I'm going really intense in one particular area, it might mirror somebody else's efforts. So I work very tight with my director and my writers to know how we're going to make this cake, so to speak. And a little bit of both is the best way to go. I did do a Tales from the Crypt with Sidney Silvestri, who hadn't done anything since Paint Your Wagon with Lee Marvin. And I got to work with Roddy McDowall and George Wendt from Cheers, and I was, Van Helsing, the Reluctant Vampire. They were a lot of fun, and after I kill the wrong guy and the guy, the detective shows up, I go, well, it had to be, Lieutenant, it had to be. And the director goes, cut. I go, he goes, do the lines again, but you're doing too hard of a consonant on the B. I go, all right. Well, it had to be, Lieutenant, it had to be. Cut. Why can't you listen? Are you stupid? Ooh, it's a good thing to say to Michael Berryman. I'm going, no, I'm not stupid. How would you like me to say it? He tells me, I parrot him exactly. Still not good enough. 12 takes later, he goes, well, I'll just have to go with what you gave me. And he walks off the set. Now, when I was a kid, I looked like this, and I used to have a fuse for my temper exploding atomic bomb about that long. And I learned over many years that's no way to live. And so I go, what did I do wrong, guys? I'm looking around, and George Wendt sits up from the coffin butler bed. He goes, oh, Michael, it was just your day. He's been an asshole to everybody all week. And I go, thank you. Then I called a buddy of mine who's a film historian, John Roberts, out of Palmdale, and I go, John, I did this, and here's what happened. He goes, well, who's the director? And I go, Sidney Sylvester. And he goes, oh crap, he hasn't done anything since Paint Your Wagon with Lee Marvin. That was a terrible Western musical. So I guess my point is, number one, I read my script. I try to know everybody's lines, even scenes I'm not in, so I can really get a feel for the flow. I close my eyes. I try to vision it in my mind, and I trust my director and my camera, my director of photography, my DP, cinematographer. I work with them. When they're dialing in and they're trying to measure where you're going to be, and I'm going to walk from here to there in 5 spots, and there's marks, but you don't want to look at the mark. You have to be able to do this and be in focus. And also, one of my biggest gripes, I've seen many Oscar-winning actors do this. Then the other person goes, yes, and this and that. And so the poor sound man's going gain up, gain down, and you have to be able to do live sound. You have to be able to project, and professionals should know how to be professional. And most of the time they are, but sometimes they don't bring it up. And I like to appreciate everybody's efforts, because it's family when you're on the set, and everybody's there for a reason, and we should all work for the best effort we can get.
A little non-horror related, weird science. The scene with your teaching job line, was that improv? Tell us how that went.
Weird Science was an absolute delight. I was so incredibly impressed with Robert Downey Jr. because the guy is a god. Everything he does is wonderful. From Parenthood to everything he's done, he just is incredible. So, I mean, John Hughes had a read on the pulse of youth and all those things that we go through. He really did. That's why he was so successful. And he was an absolute joy to work with. So we do the Vernon Wells thing, and they have the challenge, and the boys, the gun is not a squirt gun, and we're leaving, and John comes up to me and he goes, hey Michael, I'm going to end the scene panning tight on you, and then I want you to give a look to the camera and say something. What if, when you're not terrorizing kids as a mutant motorcycle rider, what if you were a school teacher, and this is just an opportunity to do the magic of Kelly's character, that you can kind of get back to these little bratty kids that might not be well behaved in grammar school. And I go, or high school. I go, okay. And then when I did the lines, I did them while I was moving the motorcycle, because you couldn't just cut away and remove any of the dialogue that I was going to say, because it wouldn't match. And what I said was, please don't tell anybody about this. I don't want to lose my teaching job. And I paused, and then I continued, because they wouldn't cut away, and I said this, God bless. Now, I said God bless because I had the joy of meeting Red Skelton when I went to grammar school with Paris Hilton's uncle and father, and Ray Montgomery, and a lot of the early studio players that were Catholic. I had to go to Catholic school, didn't have a choice. I'm not going to tell you how that ended. It wasn't pretty. But I got to go to Red Skelton's house, and his son Richard was in my grammar school class. And he had a really cool bedroom with comic books and toys and trains. Red would come up into his son's room, and he would read comic books with us. And I would sometimes go, could you do Me Little Kid, please, or Gertrude and Heathcliff? And he would. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy. So because of how much I appreciated the heart and soul of this wonderful gentleman, Red Skelton, and how he treated his family, and how the studios did not respect him. Because when Richard was dying of leukemia, Red wanted to show him the world before he could not travel. Well, back then they did not tape television shows, and the studio executives said, if you walk away and we have no content, we'll sue you. And he said, I'm going to take my son and my daughter and my wife on a trip around the world and show my son the world before he dies of leukemia. So you go ahead and sue me, and I'll give you all the free publicity you can handle. They got back to Red and they said, oh, do you think we could sponsor you? And he says, Well, that's really nice. A little too late. But I believe it was TWA or Pan American. I think it was TWA that said we're on. And then I've got newspaper clippings from all the places they stop around the world. So, out of respect to someone who at the end of his show would say, "Would like to thank your family for allowing us to be part of your viewing audience. I'd like to thank our sponsors. Good night for now. And God bless." Well, the studios, this is before they got on his case about running off and showing his son the world. They said, "Red, you can't say God bless, that might upset somebody." Now, a line in the dirt causes a lot of strife and people die, and my God's better than yours is a problem. But we are all human beings, and there's some sort of higher power. So I leave it at that, because I don't like dissension. We all need to rise up and make things a little better. So how dare they insult Red and say, "You can't say this"? And Red said, "It's my show." And I always respected him for having a beautiful heart, wonderful creative imagination, and a spine. I wish we had more people like that in Congress.
So this weekend I found out that you did a lot of shooting on The Crow.
Yes, I did.
So what happened with all of that?
We had an incredible script written by David Scow. I was the Skull Cowboy. James O'Barr is a very dear, close friend of mine. We keep in touch. There are rumors, of course, of another Crow. He told me at a show, I keep in touch. He told me that he wants it graphic novel style. He would like to have the Skull Cowboy back in the story like the original writing. And he told the studios that unless he has complete artistic control, he does not need the money. He has $50,000 in a mason jar buried in his backyard. That's a quote. But he's an artist, and he says, "No, I'm not going to be whored out to something that I don't have artistic control, regardless of what the director may or may not want to do." But when I was in Wilmington and working with Brandon Lee, I had the absolute joy to become very good friends with him for a short period. I knew him. He was very, very talented. He had his father's flexibility and strength. I watched him when he comes out of the grave, all my stuff's cut out, where he says, "Who the hell are you?" And I tell him to follow the crow. We had a lot of footage, which you'll never ever see. I have 2 hours of footage, but I'm under my word to never reveal it, duplicate it. Or if you come to my house, I'll show you. I watched Brandon in the mud, barefoot, and it was really cold. He was wearing a spandex bodysuit. I was wearing a spandex bodysuit with latex bones and leather. And after a while, the leather became so cold. They would make it rain. Everybody's in snowmobile suits, and he and I, they're making it rain, and they turn on Ritters, which are like propellers, 8 wooden propellers that go, and can make it like a blizzard. And then we would be freezing, cut, action, we would do our work, cut, and they would take furniture blankets and bury us in those. I'm amazed we didn't get pneumonia. But I watched Brandon run in the mud, foot sliding, toes digging in to make up the difference so he could jump, clear the headstone at the graveyard, and land at the exact same height. So he had amazing physical prowess. He was also a wonderful musician. That was actually him playing on the rooftop. We talked about his father. We talked about his engagement to Elijah. We talked about safety on the set. And when you have a right-to-work state that doesn't like unions, and when you have people cutting corners to save dollars, and you have as much gunplay as we had, and you don't take the time to take a flexible flashlight and really inspect the barrel of every gun thoroughly, and you send home your weapon expert back to California to save dollars, and you hire a local guy who's intimidated by a powerful film company and fame, and it's push, push, faster, faster, and a piece of metal. Sometimes they'll take a brass and they'll cut little jagged edge triangles, fold them over to hold the wad. And I was a reloader when I was 12, had an NRA card, but my point being, when that explodes, one of those little pieces of metal got dislodged and got jammed into a groove in the twist of the barrel. They ejected, looked down, but they didn't look really, really, really carefully. A little piece of metal was in a groove. Now they have a full charge blank, An actor has it, he's pointing it at Brandon, he pulls the trigger, it dislodges the piece of metal, it went in his navel, went to his spine, and he bled to death. And our hearts sank. He was shot the day before, 2 days before I was to fly back to finish the film with all the Skull Cowboy dialogue, where I had the confrontations in the loft. I warned him that kill the ones that killed you both, or you will not be reunited with your beloved. I'm already dead, he tells me. And I said, then I can't stay, then be damned. And I disintegrate in front of the church. There's some footage to that. Some of the photographs of that scene are in Kitchen Sink Press, The Making of the Crow. There's a couple still shots. And there is some extra footage in some of the DVD releases that show a couple semblances of that. So I get a phone call telling me what happened. I turn on the TV, it's on the news. I'm just devastated because, well, it's too personal to tell you what. I went to Brandon Lee's funeral in LA, and Elijah asked me some questions with regarding whether Brandon would contact her, and I can't say anymore, it's not my business, but it ripped us apart. And when I got the news, I got a phone call from my producer and my director, and they told me what happened. And I couldn't believe it. And I was angry and just ripped apart at the same time. I didn't know how to respond. And I hung up, and my phone rang. And it was the National Enquirer. And here's how I pick up. Hi, hello, this is Michael. Hi, I'm from the National Enquirer. My name is Tom, and I just found out that I got a call sheet for the Crow in Wilmington. So sorry about Brandon, but Brandon died, and there was an actor named Michael. There's 3 Michaels on the call sheet, and an actor named Michael killed Brandon Lee. Did you kill Brandon Lee? And I go, it's going to sound like I'm hanging up, but I'll give you one chance to answer a question. Yeah, what's the answer? What's the answer? And go, how much and who did you pay to get my private unlisted phone number? Oh, that's not important. I remember it. And I go, it's going to sound like I'm hanging up now. And I hung up, and I called a friend of mine who was a film historian, very dear friend. And I said, Johnny, please come over and pick me up and take me to my friend's bar, because I'm going to get so fucking drunk. And he has some 90-year-old single malt scotch that tastes like cherry, because it's a cherry wood. And I want to tell you a very sad story. And I'm going to drink till I black out. And that's exactly what I did. And I was in a terrible, terrible, I'm crying right now, because he did not need to die. And I was in agony for a long, long time. And then I finally, pulled out of it. And I made a promise that if I was ever on a set, if I ever saw somebody crossing a crosswalk, a crippled person or whatever, and somebody didn't allow them to cross the crosswalk without being in jeopardy, I said, I will jump to the opportunity. And it happened after going to a meeting at Universal Studios last year. I drive a 1987 F-250 with a 6.9 International Harvester diesel truck with the independent front suspension. It's called the Beast. My rear bumper is welded to the frame. Now I'm getting up ready to make a left turn on Lancashire Boulevard. And it's LA, get out of my way. And BMW drivers are the worst. Any of you, if you drive a BMW, you are forgiven. But this chick was texting behind me, my wife was with me, and the light's turning green, and I see an elderly gentleman start crossing the crosswalk, so I'm waiting for him. And she's texting, doesn't see him. Now he's in front of my truck, and the light's green, and she's on her horn. And I had just started to move, and then he started, she's texting, I stopped, so long story short, she plows into the rear, she accelerated right into the rear of the Beast. And she's all mad at me. So I get out of my truck, walk to the back, and there's a little tiny dimple about the size of a pea in my bumper. I go, huh? And I go, are you all right? And she goes, you stopped on purpose. Well, yes, I did, ma'am. And you were texting. And I stopped. The light was green. Well, I stopped because this elderly gentleman decided to cross, and I can't just run over him because you're so important in your BMW. And she goes, look at the front of my car. And I go, yeah, it's all on the ground. And she goes, I said, should I call the police, file a report, just take pictures of one another? And she goes, yes, it's all your fault. I go, no, ma'am, you hit me in the back. Stop calling me ma'am. That's for old women. And they go, you're making me really laugh now. I said, you know what, honey? I think my wife's neck's getting stiff. Last thing I saw was her driving her BMW up Electroshock Boulevard, dragging the whole front end of her stupid-ass car that you paid too much money for. So, what was your last question? I talk in circles. If you know me, you know I do that.
Just wanted to touch on Devil's Rejects real quick.
Please.
Working with
Do touch.
working with Rob Zombie, what was that like out of all the directors that you've worked with?
You know, he has a unique look, and it didn't faze me one way or the other. I figured, well, I understand. I know Bill Mosley's a good friend. He's worked with Robbie. He's you know, just really big, very enthusiastic about our genre. I go, wow, and he was straight up, right away, welcome on board, here's what we're going to do, let's just really rock and sock it. And I think it's the best work he's done, period. It's so peck and pot toward the end, it just is awesome. He knew what he wanted, he let us, he wasn't so hands-on where, you know, do this, do that. It was more like, say almost whatever you want to say. When we're in the house, the whole thing about the droids, and, that fucker, you know, that was all ad-lib shit. Well, there was one ad-lib moment that pissed off Cleavon. That was the chicken fucker scene. Now, that was not really scripted, but the guy who started doing that, he was a hillbilly comedian, and he was in LA, maybe doing some stand-up, and the camera was right on him, so he was pretty happy, jolly about this. I got Ken Forey and me, and he's supposed to talk, and then I talk, and he started doing this whole thing about and you're not gonna, you cut their heads off, and then you put and I'm just going, holy crap, that's all unnecessary, dude. You know, implied chicken fucking is better than showing me. Fucking hey, don't you think? You know, you don't want to see this shit, you know, but you know, if somebody told you about it, you go, that's enough. I have a mental picture. So when he finally shut the fuck up, and I'm looking at Rob, and he's going, go with it. So finally, and poor Ken's been standing there not saying a word, so I'm going, so I just went off. If you see the scene, you know, I go nuts. And then finally Ken has to say, shut up, Cleveland, God damn it, shut the fuck up. You know, so, and they left it all in. But that was one of those surprise moments that you get, it's called an ambush by another actor, in my opinion, but it worked. And, you know, I was forgiven, that was all cool. And I just think the movie plays very, very well, and it's just terrifying. What's the matter, girlie? You don't like clowns? Holy Jesus! You know, I mean, there's some real powerful moments in that movie, and I would like to see Rob have complete control to where if he has a situation like in Lords of Salem when Andrew Prine and Richard Lynch don't know their fucking lines, and we're standing there, Rob, can you make the torches brighter? We can't read the proclamation. But they used our faces for the advertising, but cut Sid and our parts out all together. And we were the butchers, the Magnus brothers, and the whole scene where there's the fire, and it was all tight shots and wide shots, and they never used the footage where it explains why we did what we did. And so that weakened the film. And then I think some of the editing is too much of that entity hanging on the wall. And, you know, Sherry Moon's got a nice ass, but Rob, can you make a movie where that's not such a key point? It's distracting. But I love them dearly. They're really excellent. And the wardrobe was very thoughtfully put together. But we're in the movie for 7 seconds. But I still get residuals.
You're one of the hardest working men in the industry. I mean, your IMDb page, I think you were in, what, 30 movies the last year or so?
Oh, well, there's a lot of stuff people post, you know, it's in production. But over the 30-some years I've been doing this, I'm pushing 80 credits probably in at least 40 films, maybe 50, and maybe 30, 35 TV spots. And I even do music videos. I can wiggle my ears. I actually got invited to Circus for Vince Neil's opening of his restaurant there. He's still short and still a hell of a nice guy. We had a great time. I got a picture of him on my phone. It was a crappy picture. We were in a hurry, and I said, "You sure we're in the light?" Yeah. But Vince is great. The crew were awesome. We did Home Sweet Home. Got to go to all the brace, did the 4 pick up the phone things. They're just absolutely delightful. I think we're down at Redondo Beach. I think we're at Vince's place, and Nick, it might have been Mick. Somebody had a motorcycle. It was all hopped up Harley with Weber and racing cam, and we had police for patrolling the Pacific Coast Highway. And I go, he says, "I want to take it for a ride." I go, "Yeah." And I'm looking at the safety officer, and I go, "Hi, sir." And he's looking at me like, "What are you going to do?" I go, "Well, look, I can't pop a wheelie. It's an extended fork, but I might go through the gears a little bit." He's like going, "Whatever." And I was going to hit third gear, but I was already doing 100 miles an hour. And then I go, "Oh, but he's pissed at me." So I turn around, and I just very sheepishly, and here's this cop, and he's just giving me the look, and I go, "I'm so sorry. Fuck it, I love doing it, okay? You want to ride it?" And he goes, "No, just get out of here." And so, look, I love people that do the shield and are good peace officers. I'm going to jump to a real quick story. I used to do security for a very famous person in Malibu as a musician, Bob Dylan. And anyway, my guard dog got bit in the face by a rattlesnake. It just happened to happen, and I had to get her to a veterinary that had the anti-venom. And the only way for me to save her life was to go up Canaan Dune, which is Malibu, up a mountain, to this vet's office. So I called them up, and they go, "We're ready, roll." And I go, "Okay." Now, you got to understand, this dog had saved my life from an intruder that wanted to kill me with a machete, and I didn't want to shoot him. I was within my rights, fuck the stand your ground shit. But between my dog and me, we sent him to jail. And she had saved my life on another occasion. Well, I'm not letting my partner die. So I did something that pissed off somebody. It was a dispatcher for the sheriff department. I called up and I said, "Hi, my partner just got bit in the face. I'm going to the following location. Here's a description of my red Dodge Power Wagon. I will have my emergency flashes on. My weapon is displayed because I do not have a CPW, just so you know. And here's who I work for, and I have to save her life. I will be traveling at speed. There's no traffic. Just let any officer know if they see me speeding, it's to save the life of my partner. I will not comply. I will not stop until she's at the doctor's." And she goes, "You can't break the speed limit to save the life of a fucking dog." I said, "Good, I hope you taped that." I'm gone. I'm up the road at 90 miles an hour. That 318 Power Wagon was wound out. All the drive. And I see an officer coming down toward me. There's no traffic. I'm rolling. Her nose is the size of an apple. She's having difficulty breathing. I'm going, "Hang in there, baby." And I see this cop pull over. He lights me up. He gets behind me. I start to slow down. I'm cursing and swearing and pounding. And he goes, "Why are you slowing down?" "I'm here to escort you." I was bawling like a baby, doing 110 miles an hour. And we got there. He helped me get her out of the truck. We put her in there, IV. She was okay. That officer stayed with us till she was stable. They called and said he didn't have to be anywhere. He says, I'm writing up this report. I go, "Man, am I going to jail? Am I in trouble?" He goes, "Hell no." He says, "I'm a retired canine officer. My partner saved my life." And he said, "We heard this on the Squawk Box, because I'll tell you flat out," he says, "that bitch said, 'Oh, you go get that guy, you get that, because he shouldn't be dead, you can't break this thing over a dog.'" And he says, "Are you kidding? Every officer within radio range was rooting for you." And I said, "She's doing fine. Her name is Mishka. She lived to be 17 and a half years old. She died in my arms. May we all be so lucky." Now I got y'all crying, haha.
Great, we have time for just a couple questions. Anybody have any questions?
And on my Facebook page, please post anything wonderful about critters, cats adopting a baby bunny, all that kind of stuff. But if you put up anything posting of a trophy hunter, I will haunt you and kill you. But questions, let's go. Yes, in the back.
Since you ride,
Please stand up and state your name, sir. This is an official meeting.
my name is Kirk Owen, and I was wondering, you ride bike, what's your favorite like bike rally or?
I haven't ridden in a while. My favorite bike was Norton. I had a 1972, the last 750 Combat SS 12.5 to 1 compression Norton ever made. I like them because they have solid gearboxes, and I could tune them myself. And if you're ever in Birmingham, Alabama, there is a place called Barber's Motorcycle Museum. Mr. Barber made $1 billion selling ice cream. He has a motorcycle museum. Every bike you can imagine is there. They have their own private racetrack. Now, the guy who was the manager for Norton Billiards out of Long Beach, that I bought my Norton from, his name is, oh come on, brain fart. Anyway, he is the main mechanic guy that runs it there. And all I have to do is make a phone call and say, I'm Brian Slark is his name. Barber's Motorcycle Museum, Brian Slark is the main mechanic guy. And he's told me, he says, Michael, you show up. My wife used to teach motorcycle safety through a highway patrol course. He goes, you show up, you can ride almost any bike we have on the course, and it's all carte blanche. So if you're ever in the South and go to I believe it's Alabama, Barber's Motorcycle Museum. Go there and you'll just go, I want that one and that one and that one. And you can rent the course, clubs usually, and it's a Formula One track. You know, no cross traffic, nobody's gonna hit you, and it's just heaven. Because when you get on a bike and you're making those power turns and you're not using your brake, you're accelerating through your turns, it's a symphony. I grew up on the Bruce Brown documentaries, the surfing documentaries, and on Any Sunday with Steve McQueen and all the different types. And that's when I learned what a trials magician rider is. Remember when they're going across the bridge, all you old guys are nodding your heads, and then they go, they're magicians, they make it look easy. I like the Nortons. I like the Limeys. I do like the I can't afford like an MV Agusta. Or my son had a Ducati. We made him sell it when he passed his mother and I in Sonoma doing 90 miles an hour, popping a wheelie. He sold that son of a bitch. You can't have 100 horsepower on the road because some idiot's going to hit you. Go to a course, go to a track, rent it, join a club, enjoy it. It's no fun having broken bones. Another bike I really, really like is the, I love the old CB 750 Hondas. They're really, really wonderful. Another one that I probably like, if I wanted a nice dresser, I want a Vincent Black Shadow. They were made in the 40s, they could still do 130 miles an hour, yeah. I held a pink slip for Vincent Black Shadow and Don Garlett's Galaxy 500 that he used for drag racing that he sold to a friend of mine. I was at the top of a hill in San Luis Obispo. My friend was a motorhead. My friend did shadow racing, head work at Dave Kennedy, and we would have grudge races sometimes. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, they uncorked the headers on a 750 horsepower 427 Ford Galaxy, and a full race Vincent Black Shadow. And I was at the top of the hill with pink slips going, oh, this is so bitchin'. And then you see lights coming on because it was loud. And it was roaring. And the cops are going, where are they, where are they? And we already had keys to gates to ranchers, so we went to my friend's ranch and spent the night so we didn't go to jail. And about halfway up the hill, the Ford was just pulling like crazy, and then the Vincent just let it all hang out. He just walked away with it, you know. So we got to the top, and they go, "Do I have to really give this guy your car?" He goes, "No, we're good." So we went to our friend's house, drank some good whiskey, and played poker until 3 in the morning, or till sunrise actually. I think we woke up at 3 in the afternoon. Next question.
We got one more. One time for one more. Anybody?
Yes.
Well, it seems like every time when I see you in films, you're always using a different voice. Your characters have a lot of different voices, and is that a choice that you make? Is that a choice the director makes?
No, it's a choice. I purposely make every role. I try to create a skeleton for the character, and then I read the script over and over and over, and I compare it to what other scenes are happening and what type of impact I want the scene to have. I try to have little nuances in how I move. I've studied my face forever in the mirror, and so one side films different than the other, and this is different than this, different than that, as far as this, how your eyes look. So it's probably my OCD and linear brain, but I'm a very detail-oriented guy, and I just love to become an organic character that I understand thoroughly. And so thank you for that observation, because that is exactly what I do. And in Below Zero with Eddie Furlong, I play two characters, and in the airplane, I do a really quick German accent, and I go, "Oh, you better put your things away. It looks like it could be below zero." You know? I mean, yes, it's a conscious effort, and I think any good actor should do that. Robert Downey Jr. can do that, Nicholson, the good ones, and they make it look easy. Yeah, but thank you for that. I have a little short that's at Tribeca. It was at Slam Dance. It won all honors for the shorts. It was a late submission. It was a unanimous by the board. They had a whole bunch of late-minute entries. It was Jesse Burke, who's an orthopedic surgeon. He helps kids with construction of their bodies, and his hobby is making little Twilight Zone kind of Rod Sermon his shorts. It's called One Please. It's on the internet. We'll be at Tribeca showing it there. I've got a movie called Apocalypse Kiss, which is very Blade Runner-ish. That's being released. And I did a movie, Chad Verdi Productions, Army of the Damned, with Tony Todd, Sully Erna from Godsmack, Joey Fatone from NSYNC, and yours truly. And it's a haunted house. Paranormal people go there. Of course, I'm a retired cop, and I go, "I've been waiting for the portals of hell to open, and you don't go in there. You need backup." "Oh yeah, right. We know what we're doing." Of course, they don't listen. Tony shows up. "I am the backup. I am SWAT." You don't want to go in there. They go in there. They're flying out the window, and nobody listens. And then I have to go kick some ass. So we're still active. We're busy. I have just a little bit of room for friends left on Facebook, and that's really me. And yes, I do answer all my fan mail. I have for 40 years. If I didn't have my fans, I'd have to get a real job, and that would really depress me.
I can say I've done a lot of panels, and this by far has been one of the most open and honest, and I think it's been a real treat for everybody here in this room. So thank you very much.
Well, my last of the statement is going to be, I'm going to stand up. And I'm going to stand right here, and the people in front, I want you to read what's on the back of this jacket. I got this jacket when I did the X-Files, because that role was the last role I ever had to audition. And very quickly, I had spent 7 years with a mother and some children, and there was a particular individual, I can't get too detailed because he's still alive and wants to harm me. Some very bad things happened. I did the very best I could with the friends that I had, retired suits, spooks, whatever. Sometimes even the best can't protect from terrible things. And it just was worse than what happened to Brandon, because I couldn't protect. And some bad things happened, and they had to go on with their lives. So when I read that this guy was going to be a guardian angel and lay his life down to protect a child, I walked in wearing a Silver Surfer tie, because Chris Carter is a Silver Surfer fan. I walked right into, and I said, "David Nutter, Chris Carter, I'm the guy you want. You're going to see 100 other actors. They're all talented. I know half of them in the lobby, but I'm going to show you right here, right now, why I'm the guy that you want to play Owen Jarvis." They said, "Show me." I showed them. They said, "Don't let them know you got the role." And so when I got to go, I could barely not jump out of my skin going through. I called my wife, I said, "I'm going to be an X-Files." But when they did the role, of course, it was a chance to let go of a lot of pain. And I nailed the part, and yes. So I saw this jacket and I went to production. I go, I gotta have this jacket. It's a limited edition. That's not what's important, but it's the philosophy on the back. And it says, love all, serve all is one. And that is why we do everything we do or should do. And thank you for your kind comments. I worked very hard at trying to be a straight up guy, and I'm so glad I don't have that short fuse anymore, because I wouldn't be here with you today. But I take a lot of bastards out with me, Bernie. Anyway, God bless you, and thank you very much.